This is episode number 16 of the Nourish Life show, and today I'm going to jump in and introduce this show with pretty much the title, the focus, and what this show is all about today, which is how we do one thing in life is how we do everything. And on that note, today we have an absolute powerhouse of an interview coming in. We're going to be jumping into topics such as dealing with anxiety, breaking the habit of being yourself, going into every single area, how we break the mold and break down those things that are holding us back in love, life, relationships, connection, business, health, you name it. This show is going to be an absolute powerful one.
This is the Nourish Life Show. Break the mold and live a nourished life with Simon Hall.
And as always with this show, we always love to know where you guys are listening from and what you're taking away from today's episode. So if you are tuning in, let us know over on your stories, tag us in, and let us know you're listening, because we love to see the lives that this show is impacting. Now over to today's review of the week, and this one's coming in today from Carl, who's over in Manchester, one from the hometown. And Carl has put, the content is honest, real, and direct. Sadly, in a world full of fakery, non-entrepreneurs, and unrealism, Simon and the amazing guests are bringing real authenticity to the table, and it's amazing to see. Really freaking good. Must listen, subscribe. So a big thank you to Carl. That's quite powerful words there. So quite touched by that. And if you too want a special shout out on the show, just simply leave us a review of how you find the show, where you're listening to, and if it's having any impact in your life. We'd love to know. And like I said, it helps us push up through the ranks within the show world, because for us, we have a huge goal this year where we want this show to be pushing out and helping a minimum of 500,000 people's lives, and possibly pushing that up towards 1 million within the next 12 months. And in order to do that, we just need the word to spread out. So I can always say this again and again and again, I think I have done for the past 16 shows, which is to you guys who have been listening and supporting the show and helping us share the message. Again, thank you. I genuinely, still to this day, I'm so humbled, and I appreciate it so much to see where this show has got to. We've already hit a 1 spot and a 2 spot. And hopefully that momentum keeps going and we do work towards our goals and where we intend to go this year with the show. Now, anyway, without further ado, this show is a special one. We've never really done this as a double team before and had 2 guests in the hot seat, but today we do. These 2 have got something really, really special. And the thing that I love about this podcast show is it allows us to take people who are absolute fucking geniuses in what they do. And they're not necessarily household names, but really, really push out what they're doing and help them get known and help them get sought. Now, these 2 are absolutely doing wonders within the world of full life coaching. Not just when it comes down to like the way that you live and all the fluffy stuff, but when it actually comes down to the hard stuff like life, relationships, how things are holding you back within your business, and a multitude of different areas. So today's episode, like I introduced it, was how we do one thing in life is how we do everything. And today on the show, I've got Cliff and Marta all the way over from Cyprus.
Take a screenshot, tag in at Simon Hall BC, and let us know you're listening on socials.
So in the studio with me today, I have Cliff and Marta. So how are you guys getting on?
Tremendous. We say the same things at the same time. It's ridiculous.
You can just take the and out. Cliff Marta, that's basically how it is.
We need to kind of like hybrid the name into one and merge it.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But anyway, I want to give a bit of context from the word go with this show. Now, understandably, you both have one hell of a story from both sides, which is obviously coming together from health and obviously pulling that through to where you guys are today, who you're working with and what you're doing and the magic that you're putting out there. What's the story of you guys?
We met in 2009. I had left corporate finance. Marta had left corporate recruitment. And we met on a personal training course.
Requalifying and changing the shit out of our lives.
Yeah. That was the start point of it, really.
And of course we met over a beer or something in a pub at the time.
I think it was the Jaeger bomb. But...
No, maybe Jaeger bomb.
So how did that all stem? So obviously going from personal training to where you guys are now, How's that all moved into that direction? Because now what you guys are doing is just encapsulating everything and not just one area, which is super powerful. How did that all come about?
Very much so. I always say to everyone I talk to about that is that it was just a natural evolution. As our awareness of what we were doing and how we were selfishly helping ourselves first and then other people, it started with the physical body because it was the most tangible thing for us that we could get our heads around. And because we were both so passionate about physical training, that's the route we ended up going down. And obviously we met, and then I was going further down the more emotional and mindset, more psychological exploration of the human mind. And to be honest, I was attempting to force feed that stuff to Cliff, which he was rejecting forcefully. The more you persist, the more it will resist, right? So for a couple of years, it was a challenge where I wanted to help him open up emotionally because you were a little bit shut down.
Yeah.
And that's the statement. That just didn't work. So from the physical personal training side, we went down the nutrition route because that massively helped both of us as well. Nutritional therapy, functional medicine, and as Cliff was training in functional medicine, I was focusing more on the emotional side, and that's where the slight clash happened of me attempting to force feed him that stuff. But the moment I stepped away and let him be, that's the moment he shifted. He literally overnight read The Power of Now. It's a long story. It will be another separate podcast of how that came about, but literally, I woke up to a different husband. We still lived in the UK then, and I came downstairs. He didn't sleep the whole night reading the book downstairs. I came downstairs to literally a different person. I couldn't recognize him. Just literally was like, who the fuck are you? And from then on, it just spiraled into anything and everything concerning the human life and the bestest version of our life that we can possibly live, that we eventually call the unlimited life, and assisting people in living their version, because people are inspired by how we live our lives and what we do in all of those aspects that I mentioned, including business as well right now. But it's not them copying. We don't want them to copy what we do. We want them to be inspired and do what they want to do, using us as an inspiration and example. So it was just a very much, coming back to your question, very much a natural progression and evolution of whatever felt good and whatever felt inspiring and exciting to us. That's what we did.
Yeah, I mean,
it never stops. It's still expanding and growing every time.
No, what I love about this is it kind of folds into my story as well. So obviously starting off in the whole fitness aspect and then realizing suddenly that health isn't just like a one-dimensional thing, and it's actually everything, which is kind of why I'm so excited to have you guys on the show, because I think there's going to be such a good collaboration of like words here. Now, with you guys, when it does come down to the whole how you do one thing in life is how you do everything, how would you sum that up? How would you put that best for people who are listening?
One way to really consider this, to make it super simple, is that if you want to give your all in business, and for instance, you're eating a pile of junk, you're not sleeping well, you're not honoring your physical body, your ability to have sharp decisions, your ability to make the best possible decisions with least possible stress can't happen, right? It's also then, if you put it from a point of view of something that hits people's chords more, if you look at from a point of view of someone in the bedroom and how they want to show up in the bedroom, but they hate their body, or they have all these self-limiting thoughts about who they believe they might be that are self-depreciating, then they're not going to show up fully there because they won't allow themselves, because of the potential of rejection and fulfilling that belief system. And it goes across a whole web of anything. And anyone that we've ever worked with, they say, well, yeah, but I'm a millionaire, like in business, in money. And it's like, yes, but your relationships are in the gutter. You haven't seen your children for years. And that isn't giving you that totality of feeling fulfilled, content. Does that make sense? Because I think people rush for their significance in one area. And if they've got that significance, as in I'm successful, they can have the label, or in fitness, it's like I've got the body, then that's it. It's like I'm achieving. Yet when you get to a position where actually, you know, you may go and get the body, the six pack, and you look in the mirror and it's still not enough.
Yeah.
Like where you have that unfulfillment running.
The thing is that if you look at what we call the unlimited life, it's it's feeling fulfilled on every level, in every aspect, and understanding that if something isn't the way we want it to be, it's not to our detriment, it's to teach us something that we haven't yet figured out about ourselves. And it's only there to help us grow. So when shit hits the fan, it's not there to put us down and knock us down. It's there to propel us forward. And it's getting your head around it and growing into the mindset and a way of thinking that you can see that and understand that if something challenging happens in your life, is there to help you grow. That's what changes everything. Because very often, be it someone with an extremely, amazing physique, and which we've seen a lot being in the fitness world years ago, and you would have seen that as well, and you would have done that, we've done that as well, just that chase for the body. Or it could be the figure in the bank, or it could be the car, or it could be whatever it might be. If it's just one thing, very often it comes out of the extreme way of thinking that once I have that, it's making your life conditional. Once I have that, then I will feel that way, or I will be that person. It doesn't work like that. And very often, be it exactly right.
That's my story in a nutshell.
Exactly. And whether it's the body, whether it's the car, or the number in the bank, very often people on the outside will see it as inspiration, and people on the outside will only see that looking at the person, but they won't know them inside out. They won't know their lifestyle. They won't know their relationship status. Not as in, oh yeah, do you have a wife or not? It's like, how are you getting on with your friends, with your clients, with your family, with yourself in the first place? What else is going on in your life? What are you thinking before you close your eyes and fall asleep at night? Do you see what I mean? Those things. We see the perceived success out there, but we don't understand the story. So whenever I speak to people about inspiration, because that's how we learn. Yeah. We learn by observing other people, by looking at them, by feeling inspired. But if you are inspired by someone, get to know them. Yeah. Get to know them to the level that you possibly can, with the ability of using social media, whatever it is. Reach out to them if you want to. Do you see what I mean? Get to know them from the perspective that you know what else is going on in their lives, because very often we're blinded by the perceived success that very often comes out of a fight mentality anyway, because we're fighting ourselves because we hate ourselves, and we think when I get to that body, I'll feel better about myself, and it's never enough. We're hating ourselves, so we go, if I'm a millionaire, then I'll feel better because money will give me happiness. Sometimes we don't even realize we're thinking that. We realize that in hindsight, because that's the only way we can, really, right? The number is in the bank, the figure is in the bank, but we're still feeling miserable. We're still feeling unfulfilled. And it's understanding that it's not going to be one extreme. It's not going to be the body or the number in the bank or the car that's on my driveway. It's going to be a combination of any and every aspect of my life where I feel at peace, even if I'm challenged. And that's what we always talk about. And that's the essence of how you do one thing, is how you do everything. If you understand that, you're chasing the body or chasing the money in the bank because you hate yourself, and you want to make up for it and compensate for that lack of self-respect or appreciation, everywhere else in your life, when you sit your ass down and look at any other aspect of your life, you'll realize you'll be fighting as well, and you'll be chasing things. But when you come out of that understanding of, holy shit, something's not working, what can I do to make it better? How can I understand myself better? How can I actually tune into what it is that I want, not what I think I want because society expects that of me? Everything else will change. And very often it will take one extreme approach to the body or to the money in the bank or to something else, material possessions or whatever, for us to wake up. You've done that. We've done that. Majority of people that we work with have done that. But it's then also understanding and growing into a place where you appreciate the journey you've been on. And you go, okay, I might have been fighting. I might have been chasing shit, but I understand it didn't get me what I wanted. And appreciate that I did it, because I now know that I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about this is it pretty much just sums up exactly what I took that whole approach to a complete, one end of the spectrum. Do you know what I mean? And it's literally when you kind of it slaps you in the face, then you go, not really got what I was chasing here. But then the other side of that is a lot of the time when you were talking about people who have got that perceived success, the amount of times where I used to look up towards people who I was really inspired by, and then you kind of got to meet them and peep around the curtain. You soon see that it's just that one thing, and that was it, really.
Yeah.
So with the majority of this, what I want to do is push this out more towards how we can help our guys and our audience. Now, with all these episodes, it seems to come down to like how well you know yourself and doing more self-awareness work. But where would you guys start? So, for example, if people who are listening to the show have got conflict, things just keep backfiring and hitting them in the face, where would you guys say is the best place for someone to start and maybe break the cycle?
I feel the easiest way we can do this is we use something called the ARA method in what we do, which is essentially very simple: awareness, responsibility, action. So if people are at this point where they're listening to the podcast, they already have some form of awareness of what there is in their life that they probably might not be happy with, right? And so this is the kind of self-indulgent, self-help industry that plays on like all the neurotransmitters in your brain now of like just getting you into awareness and all the time getting you to buy the courses and the books because they can raise your awareness, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where people often get stuck because they're constantly searching for an awareness they actually already have. The issue is they don't want to take responsibility for the awareness that they've brought to themselves, because that can question, for some people, everything they've ever built. Do you see what I mean? And when I say built, it might be the way they look at their body or the way they look at their relationships or the way they look at business or whatever it might be. And because that embroils the whole identity of a person, the potential threat of taking responsibility for your awareness can feel huge. Like literally, like if you think of, we did a whole event in London recently around the mindset of change. And studies show people don't want to change. People on, lifelong medication through chronic illness, over 50% of them don't take their medication every day.
Yeah.
Even though they know they need to. Right? So people, even in this extreme, because we connect in so many different ways subconsciously to our environment, so social media, for instance, how we're perceived on social media, how we are, in friendship circles. So like if I choose to eat a certain way or adopt a certain way of living, then I go and hang out in a friendship circle I haven't been in a long period of time. Like science shows us, the likelihood is we're going to connect all them old synapses and have the beer or eat the food or do the things that are completely counter to the awareness we have. So this is where we often see people getting caught up, is this real responsibility stage, because it feels like too much like chucking themselves off the cliff, using a pun, and like making the wings on the way down all the time. And that is knackering. Like that for me is like how we see it from that respect.
It's about the awareness being the starting point and knowing that if someone is listening to this, like Cliff said, very likely they will have awareness to a certain level because they would want to better themselves. They would want to shift their perceptions. They would want to improve their lives. They would want to learn. And it's getting stuck in a stage of learning constantly and wanting and feeling like you need to learn more because you don't know this or that thing yet, and this or that thing will complete it for you and it will change it and then you're done. It's understanding that we're never done and there is never an ultimate and final destination. And it's challenging to grasp first. At least it was for me. I don't want to project it onto your entire audience. But for us being humans, seeking gratification, immediate gratification, we want to sign up to a course. We want to have a call with a mentor. We want to do a retreat or whatever, something like that we conditioned to understand will help us or might help us. And we want that immediate, instant gratification. It's almost very often like the gesture of investing your money and time into something already does it for you. And it's not that simple. The energy is there of your investment in yourself with money, time, your effort. However, it's about continuing with small steps after, because it might be a kickstart, an event for someone that opens their eyes that they didn't, to things they didn't genuinely know or realize, but it's not done and it's never done. Once we step off of that cliff and once we step over that threshold and we choose to consciously create and change our lives, it never ends. It never arrives. We never arrive at the destination. And it's understanding that this is okay, because our nature as humans is to grow and expand, and we're not growing and expanding because we're broken, because the version of me sitting here right now is not complete. That's why I choose to grow. It's not like that. We choose to grow because there's more to grow into and more to learn.
Yeah.
Purely because this is how we designed. And it's understanding that every day and every moment of our life is a possibility to do something that expands our awareness, allows us to take more responsibility, and therefore create different actions that are a lot more supporting to what we do. And I feel it's starting from the point of, okay, I want to do something, and it's not going to be just that one thing that I do and my life is sorted forever. It's just an endless exploration while you can have fun rather than think, because people suffer the most when they think they're broken.
Yeah.
No one is broken and no one needs fixing. We might desire to improve and shift and learn more. Awesome.
Just a question on that.
Rather than thinking you're broken.
I'm beginning to get a bit of a sense here. Does everything fold back to identity? So, for example, if someone thinks that they're broken, does that then become their identity as to why they can't move from it? Whereas what we were discussing before?
The thing is with it, there's so many factors to it. And whether you want to go down like a physiological route of what maybe someone has been born with and how that's been activated within them and how that's affecting their mind, which is kind of my area of genius, I suppose. And then if you consider it from their patterning from 0 to 7, we go through 4 main stages of evolution in life, right? So 0 to 7 is where we're kind of this sponge where we're picking up all these beliefs. We can't really choose whether they're good or bad. We're just seeing this stuff happening. There's not really meaning to it. But this is how we will likely connect for the rest of our life. So there are people that we just, not any 3 of us here have the same start point when we go after a goal. Because I've had different experiences, Mark's had different experiences, and you have. So if we all go for the same goal and we all did the same actions and we all committed the same amount of time, doesn't mean we'll all get there at the same time. That's what messes people up. Because that constant expectation, like Mark said, that instant gratification is because of all these programmed experiences that we've had, plus things that happen along the way, how we get exposed to peers, how we get exposed to conversations, health issues we might have that are impacting our decision making. So like these all form an identity, but we kind of strip it all the way back and go, well, what formed the identity?
Okay. So from that then, where would you then go from that part? So does that make sense? So
yeah.
I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it comes back. I wrote myself a note not to forget when Cliff was talking. If you think about identity, what you said just a minute ago, right, of being broken, if someone believes they're broken or there is something to fix, they can't ever allow themselves to be fixed or not broken. They say they want it. We say we want it as human beings.
Or the words that come out.
The words will come out of our mouth. I'm broken. I need to fix this. Or this isn't right. So I need to fix this. But the moment it is fixed or we're not broken anymore, our identity ceases to exist.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate threat to a human being to lose its identity. And if our identity is coming out of that, something's wrong, I need to fix it, something's wrong, I need to fix it, there is always a necessity to have something to fix. So we might think, okay, I'm drinking too much, I'm going to fix it, and we don't drink as much anymore. So we think, yay, I fixed it, everything's amazing, but we'll immediately find something else that needs fixing. Oh shit, I put extra weight on, now I need to lose it. Oh shit, my car is not good enough, now I need to hustle and get money for it. Oh shit, my house is not good enough. Every time we feel like we've gotten somewhere, if we're coming out of that broken, I need fixing mentality, something else will immediately appear on the horizon for us to have to fix it. And we're always chasing. Nothing is ever enough. We can't get anywhere. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
I was going to say, is this like where the foundations of self-sabotage come up? Because obviously if someone's like, I need to fix this, I'm going to go and chase this, then bam, fuck, broken it. Is this where this is stemmed from?
The consideration to look at with this is why someone is having that mentality of something needs to change, right? So obviously from our human psyche, if you go down more Marta's route, you're looking at a point of view of, understanding where we're getting significance, where we're plugging into approval, all of these kind of things, right? Because these are very real things, and you don't want to take it too deep because obviously we'll be here forever. On that side of it is super important to understand, because we're chasing this elusive thing and we wouldn't even know if we got there if we got it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like, well, when the business gets to that level, or when my health gets to this point, or when I get this, or insert whatever the thing is.
It's usually happiness, isn't it?
Yeah. And we end up empty. And so then we become disillusioned. This is where people start to wander. And one of the things we really help people with in life is understanding this whole big word of purpose. Because I think the thing is it sounds such a big esoterical word. And if you really consider purpose, it's actually feeling useful.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And I spoke briefly at the weekend about this, is that, you know, we're at a stage now with men and women, they're all really fucking confused, because there's this kind of, you know, female empowerment movement, which rightly so wants, you know, equality, but yet how it's going about it sometimes is not, in my opinion, the best way. We also have men on the other side that have kind of lost their identity because of women rightly having the ability to go to work and do things everyone should be able to do. But men, because they used to get all their significance and their purpose from being the guys who earned the money, who went to work, provided for the family, all of a sudden it's got this very confused feel to it now.
Yeah.
And it's just talking historically, you know, it's not blanket statements or whatever here. It's just, if you really sink in deeper into how we've evolved through the years, over the years in relationships, and how the relationships used to work, how they work right now, and what we attempting to do is, again, we spoke about it over the weekend, it's coming from the very codependent model where people used to depend on each other. So the woman would be usually at home looking after the children and looking after the household, and the guy would be the provider and you know, the earner in the family, and one would solely depend on the other, because the guy wouldn't have a purpose if he didn't have the family to look after, and the woman wouldn't have a purpose if she didn't have the family to look after. So it was very, very codependent. And we've evolved into times where we all want to have our independence and to prove so desperately to each other that we can do it on our own. And, you know, it's very personal to me, because that's one of my my greatest stories, foundational stories as to where I am and why I do what I do, is that I so desperately wanted to do everything myself. I just didn't know anything any different. I didn't know how to live my life in a different way. Although what I desperately wanted is to create relationships that were interdependent. And that's where we want to get to, where we understand that we can be individual and work and fulfill ourselves on our own, but we don't need to, because we can have someone who will work with us, and we will work with each other to the level where we assist and bring out the best in each other.
Yeah. Okay, just going back to that, I obviously, with all the different areas of work where I've been in, I seem to keep finding a lot of like high-powered, individual, alpha-y type people who are really struggling within the relationship sector. Yeah. So going back to that, Marta, how have you gone from like that, I can do this on my own approach, to then suddenly allowing yourself to maybe be vulnerable and open things up and get into things?
You've just named it. Allow yourself to be vulnerable, but how do you do that, right? Very often, and for me personally, just got to the point where wanting to be the other way hurts so much, sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally, because they all connected like that, emotions and the physical body anyway, that I just couldn't do it any other way. Something needed to change. And it's understanding again that sometimes we get to suffer enough, in inverted commas, for us to shift. And it's appreciating the fact that maybe I just required to get to that point. And how do I know I needed to get to that point? Because I did. Yeah. And it's understanding that I didn't fuck myself over, I didn't do this or that to myself. I just required, in my personal experience, to get to the point where wanting to so desperately do everything on my own wasn't working. In the sense that rather than being fulfilled and satisfied and happy and proud of myself that I can be self-sufficient, that's not what I wanted. I was proving it to myself based on my family story, having grown up with a mum that used to be that way, because she didn't know any different. I didn't know any different in my life. But what I really wanted is to have an interdependent relationship where we bounce off of each other, where we know our space, we have our own individual space to thrive, but we can also come together and be together in a sense that we can support each other, rather than me being like this every time that Cliff wanted to support me, because that was part of his purpose as well. A natural desire of masculine to support the feminine and create a container for it to exist and thrive. I'll be like, fuck off energetically. But then that was unconscious for a long time. Everything I wanted was for him to be that way. So it's understanding that sometimes it gets to the point where we are saying to ourselves, enough is enough, and now I get to do something different. But it's understanding where we're coming from, because very often we might go, okay, I need to do something different, but we don't really understand why we're doing it. And it will last a day or two, and you snap back straight away into your old stories. And that's when relationships fall apart very often.
And I think one thing to consider as well is that obviously in our relationship, that's been an involvement of what's gone on for us. But also, like, I can think of one specific client who we're working with right now, who that's really relevant with. So he's a pro cyclist, Tour de France, like a high achiever, right?
A machine.
So he's a machine, exactly. But yet there was things that he was so in that vulnerability is a weakness kind of thing. I have to do it all myself because I'm the cyclist and I'm the only one who can affect this result on the bike.
Yeah.
That he shut himself off to a lot of possibilities. And, when he actually, and it took a while when he took us on board, and I was helping the physical health and helping him understand how that was affecting performance, and Mark was helping him on the side of understanding why he had the belief systems he did around cycling and his life in general, then all of a sudden he started opening up to a different way of looking at how relationships worked, even within coaching. That guy has just won gold medal at the Nationals, as where his performance for the last so many years had been deteriorating. And it's not because he all of a sudden got a magic pill of his ability got better. Like, he took the pressure over himself of having to do it all himself and allowed people to come in and actually be like, hey, you know what? It's not that you're not good enough. It's like, how does it get even better for you by actually having a support system, and all you have to focus on is turning the pedals.
Yeah.
Rather than the million other things that are running through your mind, when really, when you're on the bike, only really one thing can exist, is that focus, right?
Yeah. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. So literally from that, it was, even from a performing athlete stance, like where you'd expect most people have got the shit together, a good team around them, it's still quite a prevalent issue. Now,
massively.
So what I want to do here, there's a couple of angles there I want to go with this. So with you guys primarily, where are the key areas where you really, is there common areas, or is there any really key standout areas where you guys have started to see pop up in the majority of the people that you're working with?
Physiology. I'll go first.
Yeah. I was going to say, this is quite broad with you guys as well, isn't it? So
yeah. Well, like, my history is long and slightly, eventful. I won't go there today. But the thing is with it is that physiology-wise, people have no effect on how they, no grasp really, maybe conceptually, but not like understanding-wise of what is going on in their body and how that's affecting their brain, because we're conditioned into this conventional model. If something's wrong, I have a disease and it will be labeled and I'll have some medication. They don't really understand the effects of some low-level inflammation that is constant. Like the cyclist, for instance, we tested, performance has been going down for 5 years in a row. We test him, we find out he has parasite, picked it up years earlier in Asia. All of a sudden you clear something like that, and it creates space within that person. And my job, I suppose, is create space for someone like Marta to come in to help fill that space with something more positive and beneficial and something that can give them purpose towards what they want. And so I think this is probably one of the missing key things, because there's so much talk about it now, about healthy lifestyle and what diet's the best. Should it be vegan? Should I have juices, paleo, whatever it might be? And for me, it's amazing that there is an awareness that what we've been doing since the food plate and all that crap came in years and years ago is not really working. Diabetes rates have gone up, high heart attacks, cancer, depression, anxiety, suicide, none of these things are going down. So I think the physiology of it and understanding, even from a point of view of people don't even realize, and we did a free PDF on this, we'll give it to you guys for free, but we did a whole PDF based on understanding the connection between having a low level inflammation and how that's literally affecting your moment to moment decisions.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with mindset necessarily. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course, because if there's whatever is going on in the body on the physical level, it will affect our mental and emotional ability to make decisions and choices to improve our lives. So starting with that physiology is just such a crucial part that very often we always see people either talk about the physical aspect or the emotional aspect. So it's either, or the more psychological aspect. So it's either or. It's either the mindset or the physical health, or it's either the emotions or psychology or the physical health. There aren't many people that bring them together, and you can't separate them because all of those aspects create us as a human being living our lives. Yeah. And from the perspective of what I mostly do with our guys, it's looking at what Cliff mentioned briefly, their understanding of purpose, because people blow it out of proportion. They think it's such a magical, mystical word that they need to chase, that it's achievable to only some people out there that are special. Purpose is just like Cliff said, feeling useful. And it's incredible when we literally sit down and understand what excites us in life, what we're curious about, and write those things down and see where they cross over. That's what we get to go and do, because that's what fulfills us. That's what makes us feel useful. And that is our purpose. And it's understanding that purpose is flexible and purpose is fluid. And for all of us, it's assisting each other. If you look at anything we do, any jobs we've created, any careers we've created, in some way, shape or form, we just assisting each other. And really thinking that, for example, us going through our mentoring and coaching, we're assisting people in creating a better life. Someone, a firefighter, will assist people get out of emergency if there is a fire in the house, something, whatever, anything that we do. Someone selling shit in the shop is assisting people in eating food or wearing the clothes that they want to wear. We always in service of each other, but really, truly deep down, we're serving ourselves first. Because for us to be able to help people improve their lives makes us feel amazing.
Yeah.
A firefighter getting someone out of, a blazing fire in their home feels good because he helped save their lives. And it's understanding that we're serving ourselves first to be the best version of ourselves, to then go out and serve other people. We're winning when we can understand that, and understand that we are not selfish in the socially conditioned way, and understanding, because if we are being selfish in a way that we look after ourselves, we can then go and serve other people. Because if someone comes to me and says you're being selfish because you look after yourself, what are they actually asking? They're asking me to look after them. So how are they not being selfish?
I was going to say that's them being selfish, isn't it? When you flip
so
it.
If you think about it, we can only go out and serve by being the best version of ourselves. But it's also understanding of purpose and what it actually is, and that it's not some magical, mystical word. It's also our stories that we will, throughout the first stage of our life, between 0 to about 7 or 8 years of age, we will learn so much without the ability of judgment or exploration and comparison of what's good, what's bad, and decide what will serve us or not further in life. We just take everything at face value at that point. It's understanding that we will want to live out those stories further on in life until we realize that we can change them.
Yeah.
And it's understanding also that when we choose to change them, it's not telling our childhood, our parents, the way they brought us up, that they were wrong. It's just going, hey, I've realized that this isn't working the way I want it to work for me in my life right now, and I'm going to choose something different. And when we get that, the physiology, the understanding of our purpose, and the understanding of how our stories are driving us in life, you can't go wrong. But it's understanding that it's not a quick fix. You don't do it overnight.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, everything really is just choice. Like, in its simplest form. If you don't want to pull it back, it literally is that. Now, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say is the hardest thing that people hate the word choice very often because it steeps it in responsibility.
Because they have to take responsibility.
But it's understanding that everything is just a story. It's just is that meaning we give to a story, right?
Yeah. So, right, what I love about this, I'm going to flip this back to where we just started off earlier in the show, because we seem to have got to that point now where it's like, right, being aware, now the change stuff. So, when you think about the whole, like, motivation movement, people high-fiving each other, running around rooms, giving hugs and all that sort of stuff, we see a lot of people get that kind of like, I'm going to change something approach, or they get really pumped up, but then 2 weeks down the line, they've flipped it back. What would you guys say is the sticking points with change? Where do people really become unstuck? Because in our line of work and what we've seen and all the different areas where we've worked, again, that seems to be the biggest holding point for many, be it in business, life, relationships, the works. Why do we struggle? Why do we struggle to change?
It's environment, because if you think about it, there isn't anything wrong with running around the room and high-fiving each other and hugging each other. Do you see what I mean? It gives us a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It gives us a connection to people that think like us, that want to be like us and improve their lives. But what happens when we leave that room?
Yeah.
It's the accountability after to actually go and do something and feeling supported, which very often is non-existent after a singular event, whether it's one day or a weekend or a couple of hours. But it's also the environment we're coming back to, because as a unit, let's treat a human being as a unit. We always energetically and relatively will be smaller than the whole city that we live in, or the office that we work in, or the street that we live in, the neighborhood, the family that we're interacting with. So whatever is the stronger force of the environment that we're in is going to eventually pull us in. Or we can spend all of our personal energy trying to fight it off and ward it and guard off of that, but it's just not going to work. We're going to end up exhausted, right? So understanding that even if we like being in the room high-fiving each other and running around and hugging everyone, that's cool.
Yeah.
But it's creating parts of that environment that we like and that serve us and assist us in our day-to-day life. Or if it's just the fact that, you know, you have support, you know that you have people around you that get you and understand where you're going and will cheer you on if you're struggling and if you feel challenged, but they will also celebrate your success when you thinking you've shifted, when you achieved a goal, when you fulfilled an intention, rather than telling, oh yeah, it's all right for you.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So it's understanding that the environment that we're in most of the time gets to match our desires and gets to match the energy that we're coming out of. So if we want to change, if we want to shift our experiences, if we want to improve our life, if we're working in an office full of people that are defeated with their own purpose, they don't understand what they're there for, they don't really want to be there.
Which is 84% of all people who work.
If you think about that, again, and it's not judging anyone, it's judging the circumstance and situation you are in and your choices based on observing what's around you. If someone chooses to be in a certain circumstance or in a certain place, that is their choice. We're only ever responsible for our choices. So if I choose to improve my life, but I refuse to change my immediate environment that is very opposite end of the spectrum to what I say I want to do, what are the chances of me actually succeeding and fulfilling my intentions?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, if I flip this back to my own personal, so we went with a team to Tony Robbins UPW in London. As you can imagine, went in there super pumped up off about 3 espressos, walked into the room, and obviously when you do that whole like go and meet people, connect sort of exercise, I think I probably met everyone in London within the space of 5 minutes, hugged them.
That sounds like the Simon Hall.
Do you know what I mean? But the people who I was with, they wrote down and they came out there with so much like goals, desires, passion. They wrote down everything, like they were going to change the world. But then nothing ever changed. And it's what I love about that is the actual attachment of environment to change, because I've never actually thought of it from that extent, so to speak. And
I give you a bit of the physiology of why also it doesn't work.
Go nuts.
So consider this, right? Dr. Jordan Peterson is the guy everyone should listen to every now and then. Not all of it, so some of his stuff. But he talks a lot about lobsters, and he talks about it more from a hierarchy point of view, that we all assign ourselves in a hierarchy. But one really interesting thing he mentions in there, which I really like, is he talks about the nervous system. So the thing is that lobsters, the only way they really go about life is competing for territory and mating. And so when you get into a position where you've been burnt once, your nervous system logs that, and it then subconsciously never gives the full force again. So when people have done self-improvement, or they've gone to things and they feel like they've tried, and then they go to environments again that challenges how hard they've tried, maybe that belief, then all of a sudden it's very easy to revert. But that's only one part. The next part of it, if you actually go to the brain, if you think of how we're wired, there's two phases to this. So you have a reward system in our brain. Won't get into neurotransmitters and all that boring stuff, but you have a reward system. And what they've shown is that reward system is not based on the result. It's based on the anticipation of the result you will get. So then it makes it very easy to start understanding why people get so pumped up about going to events, why they get in the room, they have amazing, but then actually when they experience the event or the course or the book or whatever it might be, it's almost like an anticlimax. And the more you go and experience the thing, the less motivated you are to actually do the thing. But what never changes is your excitement about getting to the thing. That's what doesn't change. But the sad thing about human beings is that once you've created a pathway in your brain, a synapse, for something, it's always there. You might just not be using it. You know, they've shown it in addicts a lot. You can take someone who's been sober for 10 or 15 years, had lots of stressful events in them 10 or 15 years, and they never relapsed. But take them back to the environment that Marta was talking about, like an old pub or an old haunt or an old set of friends, leave them there for a little while, they'll relapse pretty much every time.
Yeah, I've just finished reading the book, Joe Dispenza, Break the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yeah,
where it goes into quite a lot of the stuff along the lines of that.
If you like that, you would like Robert Sapolsky, Behave. It's a deep read on like neuroscience, neurobiology, all this kind of stuff, but he talks a lot about that stuff in there.
Oh, phenomenal. Now, with you two then, what's next? What's next on the cards for you guys? Because obviously you're making waves at the minute and bringing the whole mind, body, works approach, full way of life to living.
It's not 2, it's 3.
Yeah.
Well, she's here. And yeah.
For those guys who are watching this on YouTube, the TV channel, there's a dog on the screen. So there is 3 of them.
Yeah. In context, yeah, exactly.
In context. She is essential part of our brand. If her little bell doesn't go off in our live streams, people are like, where is Millie? Honestly, they conditioned to hearing, like, literally it just sets them off, which I don't mind. Where are we going?
Yeah, so what's next?
2019, I think a lot more is kind of getting back into, for us, giving back. So like, we've done more guest speaking already at the start of this year, and our aim is to get out there, more live seminars for people and sharing this kind of, not just information, but giving them a tangible,
experience.
Like visceral experience of what connecting these two things can do. The variety of clients we have, like you've heard, whether it's high-end corporates to elite athletes, all the way to someone who is just stimulated into a place of change. Our real mission with this is to be able to make this accessible for anybody, whether they're at the point of they just want to learn more about this stuff and they want to consume things like our free content, of which we have thousands of pieces now, or whether they want to go further down the rabbit hole with it. It's really about impact for us.
Yeah.
And understanding, it's our time really to go out and have more impact and to share more of this stuff, but also be in the presence of other people. The thing is, we're so much stronger together. So the thing is with it, community for us is such an important thing, and bringing people like yourself or other good friends that we have that all are, may have slightly different tints on the content, but the actual underlying energy of it all is the same, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in this weird world of competition and this individualistic approach to everything, when actually we all say we want to help people, but it's like behind the scenes, it's like, well, no, I can't help that person though, because they might take my audience or my clients or whatever it might be. It's some like crazy mentality. So ours is a lot more about collaboration as well.
But it's also bringing the physiology home again, because a lot of people don't understand things that can be made very complex. We have that unique gift of assisting people in understanding how through simple steps they can actually start shifting the internal physical aspects of their being to then help and assist the emotional, the psychological, the stuff that we say we want to change in our life. It's bringing it home together, the physiology, the mindset, even spirituality, just the desire of us for being a better person and living a better life. It's looking at all the different aspects on all different levels in life and bringing them together. And yes, very often it will be one main aspect that needs addressing. For someone, it might be the physical. For someone, it might be the emotional. That will then set the wheels in motion and start shifting everything without us having to attend to every single aspect. But it's understanding the global perspective of us as humans, who we're being, and what needs attention, for us to then be able to actually experience change and experience long-lasting change, and not something that comes out of the fight mentality that we can never fix because we're taking our purpose away. And it's being more at peace with ourselves and understanding our true identity.
Yeah.
Like I said over the weekend when we spoke at an event, that when we attempt to kill our identity, the more spiritual we want to get, and the more we want to get rid of our identity, the more we will suffer, because we live in a physical world with a physical experience. So it's about nurturing our identity and creating ourselves as the best version of ourselves and identifying with that, so we can then go out and serve.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then the next little bit on that is going through the content of what we've just spoke about. I'm a big believer in we grow through what we go through. So for you guys, where would you say your biggest ports of growth, change, or like struggle have been, where it's really kind of made you like bulletproof in what you're doing? I know, Cliff, you've got I really, well, if you want to share that, I've got all the time in the world if you guys have, if you want to.
No, we have, yeah. The thing is with it is that, for some people that know my journey and some others they won't. The thing is with it is that I was born in a position where I was in intensive care within 3 months of being born, and spent the next year in hospital with regards to 64 degrees curve in my spine, like double fusion in my thoracic spine. I've had autoimmune disease, I've had brain tumor, meningitis of the brain, several infections, all this kind of stuff. So like people say that hardens you up. And the interesting thing about that is it hardened me up to a point of numbness. So like even at a point, I remember I can visualize like certain points in your life where your memories are so crystal clear. Like I remember sitting in the hospital actually, where I just had a CT scan done because I had a headache for 3 months, not told anyone about it. And don't do that. So I basically was sitting there, and the doctor said to me, unfortunately, you've got a brain tumor. Here it is, like size of a marble down the center of my brain. We don't know what this means yet, but you need to come in and have, a biopsy, blah, blah, blah. And I remember just like literally being there and like not feeling anything. Like personally, for myself, no tears, nothing, even though you've been told you might just die.
No.
And I just remember looking at my mum going like, shit, like another thing she has to go through. Because it was already 17 years of quite a lot of stuff. Do you see what I mean? And I feel like it hardened me to the point of numbness. And this was the thing that Marta was like coaxing out of me, I think. So there's that phase of my life where, I'm grateful for it, because I was in that position where it stimulated me now to be 10 years symptom medication free of everything, and, help lots and lots of people around the world do the same. But the other significant part of my journey is Marta, because without that stimulation, like I would have never have connected the two together and never allowed myself to redefine words like vulnerability and understand that isn't a weakness, which in men's psyche very often comes hand in hand. Yeah. So like if I show emotion, I'm weak, I'm not strong. It has so many other connotations to it. So I think like it works on two folds. So there's the physical side and the emotional side that have made the biggest impact. Same.
It's just from a very different perspective. I love what you said. We grow through what we go through. And from growing up with a dad that was drinking and not at home most of the time, or if he was at home drunk out of his face, and I had zero connection other than the brief moments where he wasn't, and he was an amazing dad then, to the mum that was making ends meet and just getting shit together. She would go to work, be an engineer, and then cook dinner, but also she would put nails in the walls, wallpapers, and fix leaking taps and light bulbs and shit like that, because she didn't know any different. So, I now, after being on this planet for over 36 years, have learned and understood how all of those aspects have been my gifts rather than curses, and understanding that I've grown into the person that I am right now by experiencing those things and being able to assist the people I do by having experienced those things, and physically and physiologically going through several infections and things like that, depression and panic attacks that were linked, I thought, solely to my upbringing and the situation that I grew up with, but very quickly realizing that there was a lot more physical stuff attached to it, like parasites and infections and things like that were driving it. And then understanding that it was never one or the other. It was a combination of all of those aspects from the family I grew up in, from how I chose to live my life, from the infections that I had, from all of those different things that were occurring in my life. It's not one or the other that decided on who I am or what's going on. It was always a combination. So it's understanding that probably that was my greatest turning point, because I remember even in the times when we were both personal trainers, chasing the one thing, the one diet or the one training plan, or the one, even, I know you're laughing because you've done it as well, right? Or even, the one mental approach, this therapy or that book or this whatever. It was chasing that one thing that would be the prescription that I can bottle up and sell to the world, or just give for them to change their own lives. And I was always very frustrated and very unfulfilled because it was never the thing. When I thought, oh, this diet changed something, I then realized that I've also changed 5 or 10 other things in my life, and I could never find the one. So understanding the global aspect and the perspective of the different things and how they correspond and how they correlate, how they talk to each other, how they influence each other to then deliver the results, whether I'm feeling empowered and fulfilled or whether I feel defeated and playing the victim, that was very powerful and empowering. So all the other aspects that people would interpret and label as turning points in life, yes, they were important, but it was all of them coming together and me learning to look at them that way. Because it's not like they've come together and I'm somewhere and I'm down. Like I said before, that never happens. Now, several other things are coming together and they're making sense to me. And that's what allows me to grow and expand continuously.
Yeah. Brilliant. So it's like connecting the dots, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It literally is. Now, you touched up on something, and we always get messages around this, and I've been there. I've suffered with chronic anxiety myself. Where would you guys say that this fits in? Where does the whole anxiety thing fit in? And have you ever seen it affect people, or do you know any ways around it? Because it just seems to be such a growing thing within the world.
Affect people,
right
but
now,
also ourselves. We know strangers to anxiety, right?
I think, it's for us, we take like a multi-pronged approach, right? I think, like Marta said, everyone is either chasing the mindset thing and they want to blame, something like social media is very easy to go to nowadays, and it's not completely, guilt-free. It knows what it's doing via its algorithms, right? Something like House of Cards via Netflix was created based on all the data it connected, based on all the different people that are in the show, and that's how they create the show. Like, it's very clever. And so if you look at it from a point of view of, also Facebook, they did a study that finished last year that proved the more time you spend on Facebook, the more depressed you get. And that's not a great cycle, because obviously anxiety, depression go hand in hand. And so social media is one thing that is emphasizing, I think, a much greater problem that's already existing. So I think a lot of people are a lot more disconnected from themselves than they've been for a long time. They don't feel like they have a meaningful life. Like, they're just in the hamster wheel of, get born, get some beliefs, get some education, go to a job, retire, all that kind of stuff. And then you have the physiological part of it. In the gut, for instance, you have your own nervous system, the enteric nervous system, which has a vagus nerve, a nerve that goes all the way from the gut to the brain. When that gets irritated, watch your levels of anxiety shoot up. So like people that have things like IBS all the time and low level inflammation in their gut, like I see their anxiety through the roof all the time.
But if you think about it, it's that chicken and egg situation. It's a never-ending cycle that we can use to empower ourselves, or we can use to feel very disempowered and defeated in life, and therefore more anxious. Because if we're stressing all the time, which if you think of the overstimulation of the modern world, especially in the Western world, that's present in our lives 24/7, from the moment you get up to the moment you go to bed, and you're still overstimulated when you sleep because you would have just come off your Facebook and put your phone next to you, and you still have the, Wi-Fi and electromagnetic field. We can go down the rabbit hole as much as we want, but the stimulation is there all the time. So if we constantly overstimulated your digestive system and your digestive function, that's basically the root of us basically delivering nutrients to the body and performing at our greatest level, physiologically, is being compromised. So therefore the low levels of inflammation automatically for majority of people nowadays will be present. So if that's already there, therefore it shoots up anxiety levels because we can't reconcile the two. Your body physiologically is not working very well. Therefore, your brain registers something is not going quite well within us without us even knowing. Therefore, everything that's going on around us will be overstimulating us even more because we won't be able to psychologically deal with it because it's already compromised somewhere else. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
it could be
it's like a big trifecta of
it could be,
panic.
Catastrophical. Is that even a word?
It is now.
It is now. If
like
it wasn't, it
Hashtag.
is now. It could be, if someone realizes that, they can just sit there and go, what the fuck do I do with this now, right?
Yeah.
And, well, what do? It's what I said before. It's the one step and one small step at a time that will create the bigger picture. What do I feel right now that I can take control of? What do I feel right now that I can shift and change within myself and my behaviors? What is it that I can do? And it simply could be sometimes from sitting your ass down and taking a few deep breaths, because even that allows us to switch the function of our nervous system, right? So simple things like that. But people might be like, well, but I've got a disease, or I've got, a nagging boss, or I've got a child on its way and I haven't got enough money to support my family. Just stop.
Yeah.
From the place you're coming out of being so anxious and so freaked out, you'll never be able to evoke a change that will be significant enough for you to feel satisfied with it. So you get to reel it back a little bit and sit on your ass and actually give yourself some space, even if it's 5 minutes, to be able to reassess it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And when we look at people being depressed, they're not expressing. Depression is the opposite of expression. So what is it that we're not expressing? Is it that we want to go and paint and we want to go and sing, or we want to go and dance? Or is it simply that we want to express to someone that they annoy the fuck out of us, but we're stopping ourselves because we think it's inappropriate? And expression doesn't necessarily have to be being an artist and, banging out masterpieces. It could be as simple as communicating with our partner or our children, or ourselves. What is it that we're not admitting to ourselves that's suppressing us, therefore depressing our ability to express?
Gold, absolute gold. I mean, the biggest thing I can touch upon that from the whole depression thing and the expression thing is, this is why I'm so I go and I always follow my excitement now, and I will always go and do the things that excite me, or like, for example, going climbing mountains and stuff like that. Because I can remember a time when I didn't feel too great. I was not doing any of the things that I loved. And I think and as soon as I flipped that, it immediately flipped me back out. But then the other little thing that I want to pick up on this, and I've never actually connected the dots until that moment just then. I actually suffer with anxiety, like chronic anxiety. I was in a car crash where, unfortunately, we didn't hurt the lad, but one of my best friends was on a motorbike in front of the car. And we ended up colliding, or the person who was driving crashed into the back of him, and we nearly crushed him in a fence, which, anyway, no one needs to know all the details. Luckily, everyone was fine. But ever since that moment, I had like crippling anxiety. And I think it was always like control-based. But at the same time as that happening, I picked up a really bad, I don't know whether to call it an allergy or a sensitivity or whatever it was, to Brazil nuts. And my digestive system went massively downhill ever since that moment. And it obviously took me a few things to kind of get myself away from it and fix the digestive system. But it's amazing how you've just correlated the whole trauma, emotion, and then how it does actually affect the digestive system as well. And I've never actually put those things together. But it was from that moment that, well, things went too bad on the digestive front, so to speak.
The moment we're in survival, be it fight or flight response, or freeze, because sometimes we will genuinely freeze and can't move and don't know what to do. In that moment, when you're in a car accident and a car crash, your body wants to do anything it can to survive. And it's there is a physical, tangible cause. But we are running our lives now at low level of fight or flight response every single day. We're constantly on edge. And physiologically, when you understand how the human body works, when we go into a fight or flight response, naturally our digestive system becomes secondary. The digestive function of the body becomes secondary because all the energy stores and reserves are being mobilized into the limbs, into tunnel vision, or finding a solution to the situation we're in. And if we are in a situation like, shit, I'm in a car crash, what do? You get out of the situation and theoretically it should be done. But because we don't think about it, we process it, we relive that experience, we constantly in that anxious state.
You got to remember as well, like there's certain reasons that have been shown, like clinically, why we get high levels of anxiety as well. And one of them is fear of what our future holds. And so one of the quickest ways to take that into challenge is being something like a car accident.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And then from that point of view, it's that whole, well, what if? And then that question can grow roots within our psyche. And it's like, well, what if this and what if this? And consciously, you're safe. Like you're fine and everyone was fine. But that doesn't stop there because of all of our previous patterning, all the other things that have gone on in our life, all the other things that have appeared. It starts growing these roots, and then anxiety attacks and all these things become quite a normal thing for people.
Yeah. I mean, like when mine cropped in, I got to a position where I was having to stop buses, like anything where I wasn't physically in control of it. So, for example, buses, planes, I would lose my shit. Like, oh my God, I've got to get off. And it's kind of weird that you've said that as well. I can remember when abouts it was all coming to an end, and I kind of got my head around it. I can't remember where I was in the world. I think I was in Canada. I was in Canada on a Poliquin course, and there was a holistic therapist there, and she saw me like go from this kind of like extroverted guy, quite loud, Labradorish, to something like really quiet, and she picked up on it. And she sat me down and she was like, "Look, you can't predict the future, and so stop trying." And it was from that I kind of connected it, and I never really suffered with it ever again. So. Yeah, that's incredible. It's amazing how you just connect the dots in that.
Of how amazingly we evolved as humans, because really from what we know and understand about all the different species around us, we are the only ones that actually are able to remember the past and project into the future. So by our ability to evolve and develop the prefrontal cortex that's allowing us to do that, right now, we haven't quite figured out how to use it to our advantage.
Still very new, right?
It's relatively, if you look at evolution, it's still relatively new. But the thing is that if you look historically at any technological advancement, at any invention or whatever it might be that we figured out is new, very often we learn how to use it and utilize it to our advantage by fucking up seriously first. Right? If you think about anything, very often we will use it in a way that is like, holy shit, like we fucked up. But when you flip it and shift it and learn from that experience, when you learn what you don't want from a certain thing, you're very much a lot clearer on what it is that you do want. So is it a possibility that we can start shifting our understanding of our consciousness and our ability to look back and project forward, where we utilize past experiences as lessons and okay, I've learned this is what I want, okay, I'm going to carry on doing that, this is what I don't want, okay, I'm going to stop, and then project our desires into the future. I would love to do that, and this is what I'm going to do about it, rather than going, fuck, this happened, that was painful, and we're using past as regret and project it into the future as worry? Can we use the past as a teacher and a beautiful resource of our wisdom and project it into the future? Holy shit, I've learned I don't want to go about my relationship that way. I don't want to go about my physical health that way, but I want to go about this that way because I love it and it supports me and it makes me a better person. And then use that to infuse our future with it by taking action right now, because right now is the only moment we have. Because tomorrow, when it becomes now, is now. It's no longer tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So understanding that ability is there to support us and to drive us forward and allow us to be the best version of ourselves. But it's flipping our interpretation of it and changing our interpretation of it.
Well, and I feel like you touched on something that's so important that we speak to all clients or people that we interact with, is that you're either the lead character in your story or you're a bit part of someone else's. And the more you become a bit part of someone else's, like, watch all your stress levels, all your worries, all these things escalate radically. Because like you said, Simon, like, it's about feeling in control. But people are trying to control things in other people's stories that they simply can't. And therefore, like, that level of uncertainty just skyrockets anxiety in people.
Yeah, big time. Big time. That makes sense. I mean, from that as well, what Marta was saying is we come into contact these days with so many people who are just letting the past like serve as an anchor, and it's just holding them back from everything, be it relationships, moving forwards in the business and stuff along the lines of that. It's quite crazy, isn't it, how we do that? Mm-hmm. Is there anything you would maybe say, prescribe, or give as advice for people for maybe flipping that mindset from being the past as a locking point to maybe switching that as a lesson? Is there anything that people can do to kind of break that?
It's learning to interpret all of those things as lessons, because if you think about it, and it's coming to that middle point of what we talked about before, that responsibility, right? The second step, where we get to take responsibility for it. So for years, I played the victim of, oh yeah, my dad was an alcoholic. Oh, my mom was, that person that needed to do everything herself, and blah, 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 blah. And that was like ruling my entire life and my entire experience, that I couldn't be the person that I want to be because of my past experiences. But I'm actually being the person I absolutely desire to be right now, because I understood that if I didn't have those experiences, I would not be able to speak about what I speak about so powerfully. I would not be able to assist people from the place of understanding and compassion as well, because I've had my own challenges that I realized were my greatest lessons. And again, it's not an overnight process. It is part of our exploration and the path we're walking as humans that we call our life. And it's knowing that we get to start somewhere. And even if we just take away from today, if someone listens to us speak, and even takes away that, holy shit, maybe I can look at the things that happened to me in the past and actually learn something from them. Just start there. Because some people might be like, fuck this, but this happened to me and that was horrible and that was horrible. And that's okay. It was challenging. Of course it was. If you feel hurt by it, if you feel like you've suffered, don't deny yourself those feelings, but understand that when we in the moment of change, in the moment of that process hitting us so hard, we can't see the lessons in it. We're very reactive. We're very much in a fight or flight response where nothing else exists other than our body physically and emotionally and energetically wanting to survive. But remembering that at some point in our life, it will make sense. Like you said, it's about connecting the dots. The dots can only ever connect looking back. They will never connect looking forward.
Steve Jobs.
Knowing that at some point it will make sense can help and assist us take that pressure away from ourselves.
I think the other consideration there, like Marta says it so beautifully, I feel stupid adding even anything to it. But the thing that I would
Don't
say...
use your past to project it into the future perception of yourself.
No, but you just said it so eloquently. I feel like one of the biggest things that Marta spoke on a little earlier was about creating space. And I feel one of the reasons people struggle with the past so much is because they're so caught up in their current choices, whether subconscious or otherwise, that there is no space.
Yeah.
And so like for us, the reason we do the mind-body mastery is we would look at it that way is because if I can take all the pressure off the body from the past, choices and things that have gone on, and I can re-educate people and help people understand their physiology and their brain from that point of view, that creates a hell of a lot of space. When Marta can help someone question an experience and they find even a place of neutral where once they found it wrong, that has created space. And then all of a sudden, you can start creating different anchors that become way more positive or have that positive effect, positive net effect on someone's life. And it's, I think what we do as humans, we race for the absolute all the time. And we're like, when will this change? It's like, what change? Everything. Like, when will everything change?
Life.
And it's like, you can be that dickhead and go, well, when you allow it, or you can actually just say, well, how are you tracking and measuring change? What is a meaningful change for you? Because a meaningful change for me and Marta is not a meaningful change for someone else sometimes. So it's, our job is always to step back and not project what we think change should look like or what is valued as good or bad. It's, our job is always to create a container for someone to explore their own answers, rather than like what we see a lot of the self-development industry is try and feed the answer to the person.
Yeah. You do see that a lot, come to think of it.
A little bit, yeah.
So, I've seen you guys, I've obviously spent a lot of time with you guys, and I know that you are quite big into journaling and awareness work. Are there any non-negotiables or anything that you can put through to our audience, or questions that you ask on a daily basis or weekly basis that are a bit of a game changer for you or keep you in line?
The beauty of flowing with experience and doing like what you said, what excites you, is that it changes based on where we are personally in our lives. So the journaling prompts, if you like, they change regularly, and it's, you get to a point when you've done it for a little while where the questions come themselves, or you could even read, you might write something on social media and someone will latch onto something, shit, that makes sense, and then they'll take it and journal about it and they'll explore it.
Yeah.
Or someone, you know, you work with a coach or a mentor and they prompt you with something and that's what you go and explore and maybe do it regularly. But for someone who's never done that, simply starting with writing their thoughts,
yeah,
and getting it out of their head and their mind. My first one of the very first conscious journals, when I was using a journal for a conscious purpose, because I still go to my mum's and I have a little box there with journals from where I was like 7-10 years old, and I was writing love letters in them and also what?
Like, as a bloke, like, that was so foreign to me because I was like, it's too busy playing football to even know what a journal was.
Eating worms.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Eating that grass, seeing what effect that would have on me.
So, you know, I've got those journals from back then full of love letters and all sorts of other things. But even when I read some of those things, it was just like a daily rundown of what I was up to. I was basically talking to myself. So even if you start with that, and then 2009, I think it must have been towards the end of 2009 or early 2010, where Cliff started seeing, obviously, a mirror reflection of his mental torment within me, but I was more expressive and talking about it more openly. He would say, have you written this shit down? And I'm like, oh, I forgot about that you can actually do that. So even starting with that, and I still have that little cute Winnie the Pooh journal that's, if you read that, you would honestly think I'm a psycho. But I started getting all the frustration, all the negativity out of me onto a paper and onto that empty page.
Creates space.
And that creates space.
It's expressing,
and when
isn't it?
It gives us an outsider's perspective. It's like having a conversation with someone when you get it out on paper. So literally starting with that, or it could be simple questions like, what is it in the morning, 5 minutes before you leave the house? What is it that I want to do for myself today? What is it that I want to do for someone else today? Remember, going back to that service of self and then someone else. Or what is the one thing that I can do for myself today that will help me be a better person for my husband, for my wife, for my children, for my clients, whatever. It's, how long is a piece of string and how wide is the ocean? It's literally endless possibilities, but I understand that different people will be at a different start point. Some of the people listening to us would have been journaling regularly. and certain things might prompt them that we said somewhere even during the podcast, but other people would have never done that, and they'll be like, why would I be writing shit down? Well, if there's things that, think about what happens with you and your mind and your thoughts 5 minutes before you're about to fall asleep. What is it that's going on in there? Literally, sometimes I would be so tormented with my own thoughts back in 2009-10 when Cliff suggested me writing all of that stuff down, that I would wake up in the middle of the night with something completely taking up all my space and capacity and freaking me out, making me stare at the ceiling going, what the fuck am I going to do about it? I would sometimes, even in the dark, pick up my journal and scribble. I wouldn't even see what I'm writing, but I needed to write it. And the moment I did, I put the journal away, I was able to actually go back to sleep.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I've had a real roller coaster ride with the whole, like, what are the things that are non-negotiables and what are the things that get to happen in my life. And, you know, it's very easy for me because of how analytical I am as well to get caught in an absolute mindset of like, this is the thing. And, you know, how many articles that you read, it's like the top 5 morning routines that all the successful people on the planet do. And
you have to do the same.
And if you, or we all need the same color t-shirt or something like this, right? So the thing is with it is that I fell into that. I was very easily swayed, I suppose, at the start of my journey with regards to self-awareness. And for anyone listening to this, I think in hindsight, connecting dots going backwards, thank you, Steve. And so the thing is looking at this going backwards, is that I used to torment myself, like saying with the Miracle Morning, like it's great, but like I did it like a month maybe, like solid, and I ended up miserable because it became a condition on my life.
And unless you did this,
unless I did the whole thing for the whole amount of the hour, it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I need to like rehash how we perceive good enough and not. So like for me, my non-negotiable now is that I will absolutely have time in my morning before I engage in anything else. That's it. It's not a certain amount of time. It doesn't matter if it's a minute or 5. Like I will know I have that internal compass of when that's enough. Does that make sense? And for some people, they might not have the freedom we do at this moment in time to achieve that same level of time, whether it be 2-3 hours. But understanding you can get the same net effect with 5 minutes of breathing, just honoring yourself.
Totally. I mean, there's a flip side to it as well, isn't there? There's so many like morning routines, rituals where I've seen so many of my, do you remember when people just get so into like the entrepreneurial thing and everything becomes about growth and all that sort of stuff? Where they're literally going into the morning with so it's a MCT coffee, then it's Wim Hof breathing technique, then it's 5 minutes of journaling, then 3-page writing. And then it gets to a point where if that doesn't happen, it then serves as a negative bias for the day. And it's like, oh, I feel really bad and shameful now because I didn't do my breathing.
It's not your best and whatever.
We were talking about identity earlier. It's like, if you want to see identity, just look at that. It's like, well, who are you without that thing?
Yeah.
But an identity that becomes destructive rather than constructive, right? Because remember, identity is always going to be there. The more we fight it, the more miserable we become.
Yeah.
Cool. So moving on from that, anyway, I want to start wrapping up because understandably we can be here for hours talking. Now, I always ask these 2 powerful questions towards the end, and it'll be good to get it from 2 points of view here. Now, if you were to be able to go back into your own stories and you were able to go back to that point when you were a sponge between the ages of 0 and 7, and if you can think of the most monumental point of your life at that age and put yourself as you are now back into that picture, grab the hands of the younger you and give one piece of advice for later life. What would you give? What's that one thing?
Powerful question, eh?
It is. I like that question. What was the memory you had? I had a very specific memory.
Go on, Chef.
So the very specific memory I had I have this, they say very powerful things commit to memory, right? So I have this very powerful memory from about 18 months old to 2 years old, where I was in Great Ormond Street, and I had this full torso brace on because of my spine. And one of the things they did before they put the brace on, the reasoning for putting the brace on, I literally remember this, it's nuts, but I remember this, and they said, this will keep you safe. And when they took it off, I completely freaked out. I remember just being freaked out as this kid screaming, and they thought it was because the saw they were using, because it was like old school plaster of Paris. It's not like the new light stuff. And I was just freaking out as this baby. And I think my thing would have been like back then, the advice I would give myself would be very much about be very aware of who you appoint as the authority in your life, who you give your control to.
And you
Love
only
that.
realize that when they were cutting through the plaster cast, you were afraid of losing safety because the doctors told him physically, this is going to keep you safe. And being the sponge and not being able to distinguish what they actually meant, what you believed is that if you don't have that plaster cast on, you're unsafe. And you realize that 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And that led me down a whole route of isolating myself, to spending time on my own.
And if you think about that, that would have been 30 years of somewhere deep down on a very intangible level feeling unsafe because the freaking plaster cast is not on him anymore. Logically, it doesn't make any sense, but if as a little baby, 18 months old or 2 years old, you've made that decision because someone told you that you considered an authority, this is going to keep you safe, and then they're taking it away and you don't understand why, this can affect every single decision moving forward in your life.
Yeah.
And if I was to say anything to myself is to create a relationship with myself in a sense that I actually am my greatest asset and my greatest buddy. Because over the 36 years of my life, I had genuinely one experience when I felt it viscerally with every single cell of my body. And maybe I could count the other experiences that were similar to that on the fingers of one hand, literally, where I actually felt at peace with myself and that I was my greatest friend, that I was the first person that I go to before I go out anywhere else, in a sense that if I don't treat and see myself as my ally, I can't be of service fully to anybody else because I'm always coming out of a place of conflict. And it's that continuous repetition and a reminder to yourself that until and unless we are genuinely able to connect with ourselves on that level, we're always going to be running out of some sort of story. And again, all of those stories that I've been running out of assisted me in being where I am right now. So I'm grateful for it. I've grown into the place where I can say that. But before I got to that point, it was mental torment continuously.
And now look at you.
You're doing all right.
I know. So last but not least, for you guys, what does it mean to you both to be able to live a nourished life?
It's interesting you asked this question. We did an exercise maybe a couple of weeks ago, which I'd recommend that everybody do, which is taking a piece of paper, and this is a great way of getting some framing on where your life is what are the top 3 to 5 most important things for you to experience in the next, say, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things we were speaking about this morning on our morning walk was just that waking up feeling content, like there's nowhere to be, like other than in that moment at the time. Like that for me is probably the most important thing out of all the chasing I've done in life and material things and significance, because I've been short, and importance and all these kind of things from outside sources. Like the biggest gift like I can give myself now is that contentment of not rushing.
And it's to give it a little bit of context, because let's be honest, most of us will have things to do and places to be. It's in that moment, having such level of trust in yourself and the circumstances around you, regardless of how challenging or not challenging they are in the moment. It's knowing that in that moment, when you wake up, you can be fully present with yourself or the person you're waking up next to, if you are, to just be there and nowhere else, not running to your laptop and sorting out your finances, not running to that first meeting, not thinking of what you need to cook for dinner. It's an incredible place to be.
Yeah.
And it's knowing that when you said that little exercise of writing 3 to 5 things that you would want to experience over the next 6 to 12 months in your life, it's knowing that, again, you take that responsibility and the steps that you are able to take in order to get towards it, that you taking the power back of your own circumstances and your own experiences. And for you, it will be a nourished life. For us, it will be the unlimited life. It's all the same thing. It's all of us wanting to live as the best version of ourselves, but it's also understanding who that person is. So asking yourself, going back to journaling, when I'm being the best version of myself, I am. What am I doing? What am I thinking? Who am I being to myself, to others? Getting to know that person. And that's when you're getting to know yourself on that level, that's when you're nourished.
Boom. Get to know yourself.
Yeah.
So just as a bit of an acknowledgement to wrap up, guys, I love what you guys are about. I love what you're doing. I think as you together, you are just such a powerful force. And to see the amount of lives that you're helping, I can't wait to see where that goes and grows. So thanks for coming on the show, and where can everyone find you or find out more or see more of what you guys do? Where do you hang around online?
Well, social media, like our page is at Cliff and Marta Wild on Facebook page. We do a lot of stuff on our own personal profiles as well, which is super easy to find us, or cliffandmarta.com.
Amazing. So thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers, buddy.
I can imagine there's going to be more, no doubt.
Of course.
And as always, another powerful podcast episode for you guys. Amazing. And a big shout out to the guys for coming on here and double teaming it. No doubt there'll be more in the future. If you have tuned in today, help us spread the message, help us spread our own mission, and share the podcast with those you know and those who you love. But apart from that, till next time.